Why should the coach, together with the coachee, co-construct goals and action steps?
I can tell you, learning from experience, that if you don't do that, I feel like you want the coachee to be invested in their learning, right? And so if you're not co-constructing, then it's just another person coming and telling them what to do. And that's not real coaching. You know, a coach's role is to listen and to facilitate the learning, but it's not to have the answers and to tell people what to do. And so you have to co-construct the goals. All of the goals should come from the coachee. Mm-hmm. You know, it's their learning, it's their goal that the coach is there to facilitate and develop, but it's not, the coach should not come in with specific endpoints. I mean, you can have a vague idea, like, okay, I think we're going to work on environments, you know, but the idea of like getting people to a specific place, it's not about you, it's about you, how the coach supports people's learning.
I think it's really important before the coach sits down with the coachee to co-construct, the coach still has to have some sense of how to move someone from where they are to where they need to be. So the coach is in the business of change management. And you need to understand how people change, some of the neuroscience, how to get people to be motivated and invested in that. All these things that you now are going to bring to that co-construction. As you co-construct, you're able to create that learning progression for them that they may not know. They know what they want to get better at, they know what their pain points are, and you then are able to bring in an understanding of how that change management happens, right? Because it's not like we're going to do this lockstep, but that there's a fluidity to it, there's an adaptability to it. You're also trying to create a shared vision, right? Where are we going to go? What are we doing? What are we trying to accomplish here? So that there's ownership for that coachee. That, yep, this is the vision. But that vision that you're helping them construct is informed by the philosophy. It's informed by these things that they don't necessarily know to bring. So that's why that co-construction is important. I think the other thing I would add is a learning progression. Mm-hmm. Know how change normally happens. Mm-hmm. Everybody's different. So our change process is going to be different. Mm-hmm. But I need to know as a coach how to move them through that. So co-construction is the very beginning of that, but I'm bringing all of this knowledge to that process.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I want to just sort of note the importance of working with the site supervisor and the administrators is a really, really critical component, because we had situations where the coach and the coachee were working very, very closely, making all these changes, and this would literally come in the next day and the program would be moved back because the director didn't understand what they were doing. Right. And then that was so, demoralizing, and like, we worked really hard on this, and why is it changed back? So there's, I think that's really important to have that alignment too, because you are finessing sort of these two. The coach's role is really very intersectional in the sense that like you're sitting at the intersection of maybe FEDCRs and Head Start standards and what the director wants, and so a lot of different things.
Why is it so important that we have this variety, this toolbox, so to speak, of different strategies we use as coaches to support the adult learners that coaches work with?
We are all different people. We
different.
come from different backgrounds, different experiences, different cultures, and even if we may share some tendencies with our cultural groups, as an individual may do totally different things and respond differently. And so you kind of have to have a giant toolbox that you'll have to change out some of those tools every now and then, because it's not a one-size-fits-all, and it's dynamic. It's constantly shifting and growing, and being able to kind of go with that flow.
I think you also need a variety of tools, because you really are trying to be a catalyst for change. You want the coachee to end up in a different place. And you're not, trying to do that unbeknownst to them, right? It's not a secret. You're not like, I'm trying to manipulate them. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about, using tools that are catalytic in a different way. Sometimes people need a gap analysis. How can you help them see the difference between where they want to be and where they are? And there are a variety of ways to do that. They have to be able to understand what's the vision of excellence or mastery, and where am I in relationship to that? How can I get there? So there's this conversation that happens, but those tools are really now about how do I actually help that change kind of go forward faster, and how do I engage the coachee so that he or she can start to internalize them and then use them on him or herself, right? One of the things I have folks do is videotape yourself.
Yes.
Or just the audio, if everybody's got a phone now. So these are tools in the toolkit that don't have to be fancy, but they are there to be a catalyst, to help the coachee see something that without them they can't see.
Video, I think, has been one of the most powerful components, because one person can sit and observe and take very, very detailed notes, but you still get your own bias in there, right? No matter how neutral you try to be, there's always something of yourself. But just taking video and having people reflect, I think that was one of the more powerful tools to help people see. We were coaching because it depersonalizes the observation, and it's neutral, and then the coach is just asking questions.
You cannot have a strong, worthwhile system without an opportunity to pause and reflect on the learning and experiences that have occurred. And the awareness that's developed when you reflect is important, because you need to be able to take what you're doing to the next level. You also need to know who you are, where you are, and that reflection happens in different ways. So as a coach, you may have to develop your self-awareness and do personal reflection after a session or after you've done a series of sessions. And then there's also reflecting with your coachee on the experience and supporting them in their reflective process, because it's not something that we all naturally do. We're, especially in early childhood, kids are everywhere. So you're constantly on the move, and the time to pause usually happens when you've collapsed. So reflection is a time not to collapse, but to pause and think critically about the experiences you've had, but understanding your values, your beliefs, and how things may have been in conflict.
Really what you're describing beautifully is the fact that reflection, we use it as kind of like reflection, but it really is a multifaceted process. There are phases of it. First is just pause.
Yeah.
Breathe.
Establish the space, right? Now, okay, ask yourself some questions. How can you be critical about that? In relationship to what? I want it to have more emotional intelligence today. So you set some goals for yourself going out. So when you come back to reflection is, how did I do on those points? Right, and being able to do that. The other thing I believe is very important is reflection is where change happens. So we say we do this coaching so that we can get coachees to kind of move, and we move the needle and we improve, scores. But the reality is, if nobody pauses, then that change is actually not going to be able to take place internally, so people can take different actions. So it becomes a critical component, I think.